Hey, it's Chris with Implied Music, and this is my piano. It's the 88th day of the year, and that means it's Piano Day. We're going to break this beast down, shall we? It's called Piano Day because 88 is the number of keys on the instrument, although a big Bosendorfer may have as many as 97 keys. Of course, the piano has a combination of black and white keys, doesn't it? Let's take a look at the layout. Each key has a long arm that bangs a hammer up into the string set. We're going to take this whole action out and take a look at it a little later in the video. This key here has a pivot point. It acts like a lever. When the key goes down, the end of the lever goes up and flips a hammer up to the string. Each key works that way. The black keys and the white keys look completely different, and yet they play notes that sound the same. If you close your eyes, you can't tell the difference between a white note and a black note. They all have the same tone. They have the same value. Well, the keyboard has been around for longer than the piano. The piano was invented sometime around 1700, and it's credited to a fellow named Bartolomeo Cristofiore, who was a harpsichord manufacturer, musician, and was supported by the Medici family. It's actually comes from the name of the instrument, the piano, comes from a much longer name, which is shortened to pianoforte in Italian, the soft loud. I tell my students that they can tell their friends they're playing the soft loud. And the reason that Cristofiore developed it was prior instruments like harpsichords and clavichords were unable to play softly and loudly, changing the timbre and volume just from touch, because they used a different kind of functioning escapement. We'll look at that in a moment. So this is the interior of the piano. As I mentioned, when I strike a key, a hammer comes up and bangs into the strings. Well, as it happens, each tone has more than one string, except for the very lowest 7 notes. And in fact, if you add up the number of strings in this 88-key piano, there are 230 strings, each of which is doing the thing that a guitar string does. That is to say, it's anchored down here, comes across a bridge, which is a giant curved piece of wood, which is pressing down onto a big soundboard. It's the soundboard here. Big, bowed, tight piece of wood. Coming across here, where it kind of goes across what you'd have to call a kind of the nut, right? Which is what it would be on a guitar. So the length of the string and the tension of the string determine the pitch. The very short notes up here are high, 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 and they're tight. And the very long, slacker notes down here are super long and a little bit looser. They're thick too. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but this string is nearly as thick around as a pencil. Each string is tuned by tightening or loosening this dingus here. It's a kind of a screw that goes down through a metal plate into a big piece of plywood, a laminated cross-grained plywood. It's not just plywood, it's very specially constructed. That's called the pin block. And when a piano goes bad, it's usually the pin block that's gone bad, because these screws, these tightening bolts or nuts, or I don't know what to call them, pins, become just so loose in the socket that they won't hold a tune anymore. And, then it's over for the piano, unfortunately. Well, you've probably noticed this row of black objets on the top, and these are called dampers. Each of them is a piece of wood with a wedge piece of felt attached to it. When I play a note, that piece of felt comes up off the string. As long as I hold the key down, the piece of felt and the damper itself is lifted. When I release the key, it drops back down again. I can lift all of the dampers by depressing a pedal. They're all up. Did you hear the whoosh? All the strings came up. And then when I depressed the pedal, they all went down again. This is a grand piano, which means that its horizontal strings, as they run away from me, can be quite long. I mean, this longest string here is longer than 6 feet. This is a 7-foot grand piano. Upright pianos take this entire mechanism and tip it up like this. The hammers strike from the front. As a result, the action is different, and the strings have to generally be shorter. You get a different sound and a slightly different feel on the keyboard. Let's take a look at the mechanism of the piano action itself. Here are all 88 keys as they live inside the piano. Each key, as I said, is a lever. When I depress a key, you can see an entire set of actions take place. I'm going to show you a diagram of this too, but follow this along. So this is the downward stroke of the lever. Its fulcrum is here. You can see how the fulcrums are slightly offset between the black keys and the white keys. There's a black key. The fulcrum is a little further away because the key is shorter. As the lever goes out, it kicks up and actually throws the hammer up. Did you see it fly really high? Now, it's only going to fly that high because there's no string for it to hit. This is completely loose. It's just hinged right there. And if you could see inside here, there's a jack that comes up and strikes the bottom of the hammer. Each hammer consists of a sort of a felted dome. And as a piano ages, that felt becomes grooved and harder. Each of these keys has, I don't know, it's probably 20 parts, 20 moving parts. Tiny little adjustments can be made by set screws that take place at all of the action joints. And a good piano technician regulates each key so that there's a perfectly smooth, even top here. This is called a key alignment. What's it called? Key level. I don't know. I forget. Oh, this is terrible. But you don't want your keys to be like a bunch of bad teeth, right? You want good orthodonture. This rail here keeps everything in place. And, we're talking about like as many moving parts as you'd find in a car. Okay, here we are inside my piano. And if you look right to the back, you can see the mechanism which manages the dampers. All in all, there's a big rail which is going to lift the dampers. Watch it happen. And then each key has a little paddle that will engage with the damper and lift it up. These risers, these pieces of wire, are going up to the dampers, and they're all completely adjustable as well. I've, over the years, had to adjust these a little bit so they don't engage with strings. On my piano, my middle pedal lifts just the bass dampers. But on some quality instruments, there's a complicated mechanism that will only grab the dampers that of strings of keys that you're holding down. It's called the sostenuto pedal. Finally, I'm going to point to this thing right here, which is called is the engagement of the soft pedal. as I depress the pedal, there's a tiny motion there. And what I'll actually do is move the entire keyboard over so that only 2 strings or 1 string are engaged instead of all 3. You get a different timbre, you get a different sort of sound at large. It's a big open space. I want to have a dance party in this big open space. Let's put the keyboard back in. A lot of these things, I'll say this, don't try them at home. I've had years of experience playing around with my piano, and fortunately everything still seems to work. There are lots of videos of me playing this piano on my YouTube channel, and I just did one about piano preparations where you stick stuff in the strings. It's a lesson in physics and mechanics, engineering, and history. Like a lot of Western instruments, it carries freight, cultural baggage. And I guess I would just say philosophical connotations of the way it divides the octave and is really quite rigid about that, and how the equal temperament has affected our understanding of the harmonic language that we use. All these things are baked in to the piano, and they're part of the legacy that, kind of I confront all the time. It's a fascinating instrument, and one that I'm really happy to have been able to show you. I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe and ding the bell, and you'll be notified when I do my next video. I'll see you next time.